Hi everyone and welcome to this video about higher education from Prince Henry's. What we're going to do is talk through the application procedure and things that you might need to know in terms of applying for university and how we're going to support students doing that. Okay, so to start with, some key dates for you. So these are some of the important parts of the process. So at the moment, students have had information about various different summer schools that universities are running. Most of these obviously are virtual this year, although there are a few that are still hoping to run live, that applications can be made for those. In terms of the application process for university in school, we'll start looking at that after the May half term, so in June, we'll start looking at the application forms. And even if students don't know then exactly what they're applying for, we can get the admin parts of the form filled in, which is a bit time consuming, and get those bits organised before the summer holidays. Get a general personal statement written, and then we can refine that when we come back in September. There's an individual drop-in evening in September as well to talk through decision making and different parts of the process, where you can book in appointments to be able to talk through that with some of the sixth form team. And then obviously some other key dates moving through the year. Year 13 parents evening will be in November next year. And then the early UCAS deadline, so that's for people who are applying for Oxford and Cambridge and veterinary science, medicine and dentistry, is on the 15th of October. For everybody who's not applying for those universities or those courses, your deadline is a little bit further on. We have a recommended internal deadline in Prince Henry's of the 12th of November. And if students get their application in by that point, we can guarantee to get it off by Christmas. And our experience suggests that that's a reasonable amount of time to give students time to decide what they want to apply for, but also to give us time to process the bulk of those applications and get them out to universities in good enough time to get decent offers on a wide range of courses. The final internal deadline to get your application off before the UCAS deadline of the 15th of January is the 17th of December, which is the last day of the autumn term. And obviously it takes time for the sixth form team to process those applications once they come into us. So the final UCAS deadline is not the final deadline for the students, that's the final deadline for the school to send the forms off, so we need those forms sent in before then. If students are applying for art foundation courses, which a lot of people choose to do if they're thinking about going on to art at university, then the deadline for some of those courses is the 24th of March if they're not done through the UCAS process. So for those, sometimes you apply directly to the college. So Leeds Arts University is one example there. And then student finance is something that most people will be applying for as well. That opens usually in March and closes at the end of May. So you've got a window there to apply for student finance for the following September. And then results day, obviously to be confirmed yet, in August 2022. So some important dates to bear in mind. Thinking about the UCAS application process, the way it works is students choose up to 5 courses. It doesn't matter what order you choose those courses in, because the universities only see your applications to their university. They don't see where else you've applied for, so you don't have to worry about ranking them in any kind of order. On your UCAS application, you will inform universities of the grades you've achieved on all your completed courses, which is your GCSEs, and then you'll complete a personal statement which has your skills, abilities, reasons for choosing that course, and we work with the students to produce good personal statements that support their reasons for applying for those particular courses. And that support programme, as I say, starts after May half term, and we use PSHE days and form time to help students start to explore university options, look at which courses they might be interested in, narrow those down to get their sort of short list of 5, and we look at writing those personal statements to reflect the student in the best life possible, and also to support them in terms of how to complete the UCAS application form and the different bits and pieces that are needed. And that process happens via the form tutors, who will work through that with the students to be able to help them apply for university. Once the student completes and submits their part of the application, they'll have put in the A-level courses that they're studying, but obviously those are incomplete and they won't have a grade for those. So we check those applications, we make sure all the admin side of things has been done correctly, and then we'll add your reference and your predicted grades, and then submit the application to UCAS on the student's behalf. So they pay and submit, but that comes to us rather than to UCAS for us to check for any errors and make sure it's been done correctly. Okay, in terms of predicted grades, this is not always the same as the MEA grades or the predicted grades on the progress report. We do the UCAS predictions through a separate process using Unifrog, so that students can see what teachers have predicted as their grades, and they are optimistic but realistic, so they're designed to support students in getting offers. So we ask staff to put those predicted grades in by the end of the summer term, which gives students an idea of the sorts of universities and the range that they can be applying for. But we do then have an amendment window for those in September, October time. So if a student comes back in and makes really good progress at the start of year 13, then there's an option there for teachers to amend those grades and to make sure that we're giving students the best chance of getting those offers. However, as I've said on here, there's little point in us being really over optimistic, because if we're saying, well, we're seeing work at a D level, and the student says, well, can you predict me an A because I want to go for universities that are going to offer A, there's a big jump there. And if we predict A and the student gets an offer of 3 A's and they come out with 3 D's, they've got no university place. So we've got to be realistic, but the most optimistic version of realistic that we can be to support students in getting those offers is the way it's working at the moment. Okay, and then once that application form's gone in, students usually start to receive acknowledgements and offers pretty quickly. Some universities take longer, some universities take longer to consider for some competitive courses. So there's always 1 or 2 people who don't get offers for quite a while, and it gets to sort of the end of January and they're thinking they're not getting anything, and then they all come in at once. And it really is just down to individual courses and the combination of universities that people go for. So that's not a reason to panic. Some people will get theirs like really, really quickly, other people won't, and that is just about the university decision-making process. It's not a reflection on whether they're going to get an offer or not. But once those offers are in, students can make decisions about their preferred courses, and they will usually choose one firm choice, and then one insurance choice, which is slightly lower grades, which is if they don't get that firm choice, which might be aspirational, might be a bit higher than they think they're going to get, then they've got a safer insurance choice in there to be able to help them have those different options. In terms of finance, and this is often the thing that students are thinking about, so the tuition fees for most universities are currently $9,250, and the tuition fee loan is paid directly to the university. So if you apply for a tuition fee loan, you never see that money, that just goes straight to the university. You can pay tuition fees privately if you have the funds and wish to do so, in which case you wouldn't apply for the tuition fee part of the student loan, and you'd have to pay the fees directly to the university themselves. The other part of student finance is the maintenance loans. This is the money that students have to live on during university, and currently the highest amount of maintenance loan is just over £9,200, and that's available to people with a household income under £26,000. The maintenance loan, though, is done on a sliding scale, and there's an expectation of a household contribution from parents towards, or from family towards that support for the maintenance loan. And so you can see on this table the sort of sliding scale. So the lowest amount of maintenance loan a student will get is 4,289, with an expectation that that will be topped up by just under £5,000 each year to allow them to get that same sort of standard of living as available on the full maintenance loan. These are approximate because they're based on last year's loan amounts, so they might go up next year, and the amounts aren't calculated in bands, they're calculated on exact household income somewhere within those bands. So as I say to all the students at this point, now is the time to start being very nice to your parents. If you're eligible for the higher levels of loan, the universities have got a lot of support available as well. So there's usually bursaries and other forms of support funding. And over half of full-time students also work part-time to top up this amount that they achieve from their maintenance loan. Average earnings from 2018-19 for students who are working part-time was just short of £5,000. So it is possible to earn the amount to top up to your maintenance loan, but obviously universities will have opinions on how much it's possible to work at the same time as being a full-time student. And for any students who are registered disabled, then there's disabled students allowance, which will add to this and allow those disabled students to have that higher rate of support to access university. Okay, so thinking about that in terms of costs, we've got some likely living costs for students in higher education, and you can see that if your living costs are for the 9 months that you would actually be away at university, then the total amount between £8,500 and £12,000. So the student loan sort of fits in there. It's possible to live for 9 months off the student loan at university. If students are planning on staying away from home and living for 12 months, then the student loan probably doesn't cover those complete living costs. And so there is going to be a period where you're going to need extra support, either from bursary funding and things if you've not got a home base to go to, or from working if you're going to be living at university for 12 months. But the vast majority of people come home for holidays, and so the living costs and the student loan amount is based on the idea that you would be not paying full time to live away from home. Okay. So that's just to give you an idea of projected costs. And obviously, again, these amounts, food and accommodation, are movable feasts. It depends on how much you pay for your accommodation. It depends on whether you are self-catering or going into catered. And also it depends on how much you spend on your social activities, your study costs and things like that. So there are ranges within that. Okay, in terms of repaying a student loan, again, this is done on a sliding scale. So if you're below average income, then you don't pay anything at all. So anyone who's not earning at least 26,500 doesn't make any monthly repayments, and you never start to repay until your income goes above that. As your income starts to go above that, then you would repay on a sliding scale depending on income. So if you're earning sort of 30,000, which is a decent, graduate starting salary, then you're paying back about the same amount as your mobile phone contract, or a bit less every year. And obviously that goes up as you start to earn more, and that's deducted from your salary, so you would never actually get it and have to pay it. It'd be taken away at source. There's an interest rate of the RPI, the Retail Price Index, plus up to 3% depending on your income. So if you're a higher income, then you pay a higher rate of interest on your student loans, and there are no penalties for paying student loans back early. So if you have a look, here's a bit of a worked example for you, that if you borrowed the full amount of student loan over 3 years, then depending on what you were earning, actually only if you start earning 45,000 or more as an average for the next 30 years, that's when you would be paying back the whole amount. Most people actually don't end up paying back the whole amount of their student loan, and after 30 years it's written off whatever's left. So seeing it as a loan is sort of probably the wrong way to think about it. It's probably better to think about it as sort of being a graduate tax on top of your earnings, where you pay a little bit more back than somebody who hasn't been to university. Because in a way, student loans don't count against your credit rating for things like mortgages when you move forwards in life. So although it sounds like an awful lot of money to have borrowed, in terms of the paying back, it's not such a huge thing as it originally seems when you think about that debt amount. Okay, to find out more about how much you could be eligible to borrow, have a look on the gov.uk website. There's a student finance calculator, and you can work out how much support you will get based on household incomes there. And there are other areas of financial assistance available. There are scholarships, there's sponsorship, there's bursary, and there are hardship loans if are held by universities if students get into real trouble. There's some specific support for different careers as well. A good place to have a look for this is the Complete University Guide, who has a bursary and scholarship grid. And if you have a look on there, you can find out for the different universities what bursaries and what scholarships might be available. Sometimes they say they'll give you an offer, but say of ABB, but say if you get 3 A's, then you'll get a scholarship of £1,000 a year at some universities. There are other universities where you can do a scholarship exam, and that can give you additional funding. So it's worth exploring there what's available on top of that maintenance grant or maintenance loan. A lot of these are available for low-income families, but some of them are based on academic merit as well. So different places to have a look at. The other thing to notice when students are looking for university is everybody's got access to a search tool called Unifrog, which students can log into and search courses, but also rank them and filter them according to different ways of looking at them. So Unifrog will set out, asks students to put in their predicted grades and then put in the courses that they're interested in, and it sorts them into aspirational, which are sort of might be slightly higher grades than they've put in as their predicted grades, solid, which fit well with the predicted grades that they've put in to Unifrog, and safe, which are maybe slightly lower than those predicted grades. And that allows students to sort of think about the range of courses that they apply for on UCAS. And what we'd recommend is that you have at least 2 courses in this solid and safe rank, and don't have more than 3 that are aspirational and above your predicted grades. And that means that you're likely to get a range of offers, but you've got some choices there to go at when you're choosing your main choice and your aspirational choice, to be able to make sure that you're going somewhere that you're likely to get into. Okay. The other thing you can do in terms of filtering the courses on Unifrog is you can filter according to a range of different things. So you can look at the dropout rate, you can look at the number of hours of lectures and tutorials you're going to get, see whether you're going to get value for those tuition fees. You can look at the percentage of students who leave this place and go into a graduate job. You can look at how much is assessed by exams compared to coursework. You can look at student satisfaction ratings. You can look at the rankings according to different ways of ranking universities, although those aren't always the sort of be all and end all of things, because sometimes the way they rank them might not be the most important thing for you. You can put distance from home, either whether you want to stay close or whether you want to go a long way away. So a range of different things there to help students sort of narrow down their choices of universities. If you've got any questions about universities or higher education applications that this hasn't covered, please do book an appointment on the Parents' Evening system for the 16th of March. We're running one set of appointments to talk about university applications and a second set of appointments to talk about apprenticeships or alternatives to university, so you can book onto whichever is most appropriate for you. Before I finish, one final word as well about choosing universities. There's a lot of information out there about sort of Russell Group universities and high-ranking universities, and students sometimes feel like they must go to one of these very highest-ranking universities, otherwise there's no point. And I would say it's worth being aware that different universities have different reputations for different subjects, and sometimes it's about what's right for the individual student, as well as the reputation of the university in terms of what's going to give you the best experience over the next 3 years. Russell Groups are great, and they're the research-led universities, and they are the ones where you've got the academics who are at that very cutting edge of research. But what we might call the teaching universities, the ones that for people of my age are the former polytechnics or the teacher training colleges and those sorts of things, often are more focused towards the type of teaching that you might have been used to in school. They're more support based, and also for some vocational subjects they might have courses that are as good, if not better, than the ones at the Russell Group universities, depending on their specialism. So for example, some of the business courses that are at those universities are really, really highly ranked and really highly regarded and have an excellent employment rate afterwards. And some of the sort of smaller universities, so for my subject, theology and religious studies, University of Chester is a really, really strong university, and some of the smaller Welsh universities have really strong departments. So sometimes it's about looking at the subject you're doing and the type of experience that you want from a university, as well as the sort of big name, high ranking universities, to make a choice that's right for the individual, rather than thinking about necessarily going reputation first at all times, because 3 years of paying tuition fees is expensive, and it's got to be a good and a positive experience. And teachers are available to talk to students about their particular subjects and to give advice about universities that they might rate for their particular subject. And the sixth form team's got quite a wide range of experience about thinking about different universities. So as we go through the process and as students start to apply in June, running through all the way through to November, December time, we're available to have those conversations and to give some support and advice about what might be suitable for individuals. But as I say, if you've got any questions at the moment about the process or how support is offered as we go through school, then please book an appointment and we will see you then. Okay, thank you very much.